All right. Hello, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Misha Saffron here with the Resilient and Joyful Leader. And I'm excited to introduce the topic for today. As you know, these are our lunch and learns. And for some people, it's not lunchtime anymore. And some people, they haven't even gotten there yet. But we are going to enjoy, again, another topic: leading with emotional intelligence, elevating workplace culture and collaboration. And I'm very excited to introduce my panelists for the day. I have Megan Fischerelli, Maria Ross, and Jamie Broderick, and they are all wonderful humans that I have met across my journey as a self-employed human myself, and I'll look forward to them introducing themselves. But before they do, just a reminder for those of you watching either live or the replay, you are welcome to engage, to answer these same questions. We are experts, but we are also people who love to learn from others and hear your experiences and relationship to the topic at hand. So feel free to engage in the comments. Feel free to ask us questions. We may not get to you during the episode, definitely get to you afterwards. So tag us. You've got our names here on the screen. And then also for my panelists, there's really no wrong answer. I just ask that this be a loving, kind space where we share the time together. I don't need you to answer a certain way that I would answer. In fact, I actually love having a friendly debate or discussion about the different ways things can be and what different things, different definitions there might be in the world. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself. Oh, we see a pup. We're going to ask you to introduce yourselves, give us your name. And right now, you're just going to give us your company name. You're not going to tell us more about it until the end, but your name, your company name, where you're located if you'd like, and then what excites you about this topic. So who would like to come in first? And keep it brief. All right, we're going to go alphabetical. Jamie, come on in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Roderick. I am the CEO and founder of Jamie Roderick Coaching. I'm an integration and empowerment coach, a workshop leader, and a speaker. And I am super excited about this conversation. I think it all starts with emotional intelligence. And I think everything is an inside job. And I won't say anything more about that until everyone else gets to share who they are.
Fabulous. Thank you. All right, come on in, Maria.
Hi, I'm Maria Ross. I am a speaker, an author, and a empathy advocate, I like to say, and I help forward-thinking leaders and teams embrace empathy as a strategic advantage and a competitive advantage. And it's my sneaky way of making the world a better place by starting at work. And I'm excited about this topic because I promote all my research on my speaking. I promote this idea of both and leadership, that we can be empathetic and emotionally intelligent and still high performing, results oriented, even competitive. We can hold both of those things to be true.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we had a very small touch point in the last episode we did where I reminded people that empathy is not an excuse. It is a powerful tool for connection. And emotional intelligence can't happen. Empathy can't happen unless you have emotional intelligence. So love it, both of you. Thank you. Megan, come on in.
All right. Hello, everyone. Megan Fucciarelli. Super excited to be here as well. You might have seen Gandhi jump on my lap earlier. Everything in my life is aligned. So yes, my dog's name is Gandhi. We're calling in from Detroit, Michigan area. And I focus on authentic leadership, which does embody the idea of emotional intelligence, and that emotional intelligence and empathy is not a soft skill. It is a human skill that is needed. So we talk about authentic leadership, culture transformation, and emotional intelligence. And I am just really excited about this topic because I think it is something that is important for us to discuss, especially in such a polarizing environment.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, Megan. So as you know, Megan, because Megan came and helped me out this week, I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I had a keynote talk for Recon 2025 hosted by Encompass Michigan. And I told everyone, and Megan, actually, this was during my keynote, not when you were there on Friday, but that empathy and emotional intelligence, they are not soft skills. They are strategic skills, and they make us stronger. And so it's this whole idea of like, take away the soft, take away weak, we are strong. And empathy and emotional intelligence help us get that way. So thank you so much, Megan and Maria and Jamie and everyone watching. I am Misha Saffron. I am a keynote speaker, leadership trainer, and coach. My company name is Center for Empathy and Emotional Intelligence. And I am your moderator for today. So we're going to move on to the first question. And that is, what are some practical ways leaders can strengthen their emotional intelligence and apply it to everyday interactions? So again, what are some practical ways leaders can strengthen their emotional intelligence and apply it to everyday interactions? And I'm going to reverse or change the order a little bit. We started with Jamie. We're going to start with Maria. Maria, come on in.
Thank you. What a juicy question. Most of my work's been devoted to trying to figure out what are the habits and the traits and the practices that we can do every day to build that emotional intelligence and to build that empathy. And there's a variety of them. I talked about many in my first book, The Empathy Edge, but what I'd love to share is a little bit more from my second book, The Empathy Dilemma, which is about strengthening that emotional intelligence while also pursuing high performance and results, right? That's the thing I hear from leaders all the time is I want to be a human-centered leader, but they need to get their work done. So what are some ways that you can embrace empathy? Well, it doesn't mean you're crying on the floor with your employees, right? So empathy has to start at home. Like you said, Misha, empathy is actually requires great strength. It's not a soft skill. You have to have your foundation solid in order to understand someone else's point of view or see their perspective without defensiveness or fear. So some ways you can do that are, number one, to just even take the first step of self-awareness. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your emotional triggers? And really dig into what you bring to the interaction. Not necessarily about changing the other person, but you bringing to the table that could be influencing the way that the interaction is going. Another great way to strengthen your emotional intelligence is to practice self-care. Because, and I know this is overused a lot, and we're not talking about massages and manis and pedis, but really, how are you recharging yourself? Because if your capacity is here, you have nothing left in the tank to even try to see someone's point of view or meet them where they are. It's just going to be you snapping at them and saying, just do what I tell you to do, right? Because that's just easier because I am at zero capacity. So make sure every day that you're spending some time on mindfulness, you're spending like 10 minutes in the morning, just grounding yourself. And whether that's deep breathing, whether that's meditation, whether it's running, whether it's training for a marathon, whatever it looks like for you to sort of switch your brain and your heart and your soul into another gear, that's what you need to actually even start to have the conversation about emotional intelligence and empathy, because we've got to start at home.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I spent some time this week focusing. My keynote was all around cultivating joy and rest for your success and reigniting your ability to kind of be in the world. And I really honed in hard on like you really have to do it with yourself, for yourself, so that you can show up better for others. And something that was really important that I had to add, apparently, which really helped shift it for people, was without guilt.
Mm,
So a
yes.
lot of people, like, they know it, they get it, they get the concept of I got to do this, I got to do this, I should do that, should, could, would, right? But they feel tremendous guilt doing it. And so how do we navigate doing all those things and not have the guilt? So we'll talk more about that, but I want to make sure I bring folks in. So Megan, come on in, you're next.
Yeah, I really appreciate what Maria started at the beginning about self-awareness, because we follow a 3-phase signature process when we're talking about how leaders can really strengthen their own intelligence. And that first phase is awareness, right? So we cannot heal what we do not reveal. It is critical for us to reveal and to expose what's going on and to truly understand what that looks like, so we can build that awareness to be able to move into the second phase, which is wisdom. And when we're talking about wisdom with leaders, it's about seeking feedback as data and not judgment. So asking for feedback and asking for that feedback to be both the good and the bad, and to not be defensive when we hear that, but to truly lean in and use it as an opportunity to become stronger leaders. And then the last piece that I would recommend as a quick skill or something to really look at, a practical way to strengthen emotional intelligence, is that empowerment stage. And what this is actually treating empathy as a verb and not as a noun. It's not just something, it's actually something you do. So it's not just about understanding what people on your team, your colleagues are experiencing. It's taking action that shows that you value what is happening in their lives. Because those micro moments of awareness, wisdom, and empowerment will ultimately impact everyone, not just the leader in the organization.
Yeah, that's powerful. I had to type down some of your expressions. So we cannot deal what we cannot reveal. And yes, empathy is a
We
verb.
cannot heal what we do not reveal.
Oh, love that even more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we have to reveal it before we can heal it, right?
right.
We have to
Absolutely.
expose it. Mhm.
Yes, okay, because I also I also like that we cannot deal what we cannot reveal because we can't deal with other people's, when we're dealing with emotional intelligence, we truly have to be able to understand our own feelings when other
Mhm.
people are having feelings. So not only
Exactly.
can we cannot heal, but we cannot deal if
Right.
we don't reveal. I love it. We get all the EALs in there. So
Yep.
yeah, wonderful. Thank you for that, Megan. Yeah, I really appreciate that. All right, I'm going to try to go do a different thing here before I switch into Jamie. I'm going to put Jamie in the center. And now, Jamie, you can start talking, and then I'm going to expand your view here.
Hey, you just run the show, Misha. Thank you. Maria, Megan, thank you for what you offered. So much of that resonates with me. During the heal reveal, there's another phrase that I know is if you spot it, you got it, which is actually kind of speaks to a little bit of your blind spots, to be honest. If you spot judgment in others, if you spot joy in others, you got it too. So that's just, that's around the self-awareness. But I think as leaders, we must create psychological safety and trust throughout our enterprises before we even hit go. If we do not establish that, and I actually think hierarchy is in there too. We've been under the impression that hierarchy really serves us. And I think that's where the misnomer around soft skills also comes. So I want to just say that. But some practical things we can apply, again, mindfulness, I heard that. Meditation, I have been meditating for the last 10 years and it has served me so well. That is when we get to go inside. As I said at the top when I introduced myself, that everything is an inside job. I believe that to be true. And so again, if we spot it, we got it. If we go inside and we do deep listening, if we're paying attention and we're really listening to people, not anticipating what we're going to say as someone else is sharing, but we're actually listening and then using our own intuition and our own empathy to then respond, not just react, but respond. I think we also are more than heads on a body. We forget that we are bodies. And so I think somatics also comes to this. This is not just meditation for your brain, this is meditation for your body. So those are some of the things that come to me because ultimately it's about being and how we show up. How we show up. And if we have our own self-awareness and we know our own blind spots and our own honesty and our own shadow work, then we can show up for ourselves and then we can show up for others as well. So, yeah. And if we're speaking to values and mission, I think that aligns our own personal and the institution's values and mission.
Yeah. If you've got it, you spot it. If you
Misha,
spot it, you
can
got it.
I just add something to what Jamie is saying?
Yeah, I wanted to give me 1 second, and
Sure.
I'll bring you in. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to just say I love the fact that we're coming up with all these, or not coming up with, but we have all these phrases and affirmations that are so easy to say and apply and offer to people because they're good, quick reminders. Just if you spot it, you got it. It's kind of like that thing where if I'm pointing at you, I've got 3 fingers pointing back at me. Right. So if I see it like, okay, look, I've got to look at my own self. Right. So yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that in. And yes, my custom is to usually go back to the first person because all of a sudden, all these people were talking and they're like, oh, and I had more to add. So please, Maria, come on in.
Yeah, sorry. I just love what you said, Jamie. And I just wanted to point out, I talk to leaders a lot who are like, yeah, that's great. But what are some ways that I can, while they're doing the work on themselves, and, we all agree that that's important. You've got to start, the foundation has to be strong. One One great way to build your empathy and to build your emotional intelligence in a safe environment that has nothing to do with work, And I'm sure all of the panelists here have talked about this before. And that is reading, consuming documentaries, listening to music made by people who are not like you, right? Hearing stories, reading fiction and nonfiction. Although there have been studies that show that reading fiction actually increases your empathy more. But as you read, doing it in a different way, or as you consume, not just, oh, it's a good story, but really thinking about what is this person's life like? And what would that feel like to me if I was in that situation? To really try to do the exercise and almost do the self-awareness exercise while you're doing something fun, while you're, going to an art museum or listening to music or watching the documentary, is to really start to ask yourself those questions so you get yourself in that curious state of mind. Because then when you need to, in those moments, you can start to default to that as I'm having a tense moment with Jamie. Now let me try to see if I can understand his point of view and what might be he be feeling, what might be he be thinking, really using that cognitive empathy so that it can lead to that emotional empathy where I start to feel a connection and relate. So that's just a really fun one that's accessible to people that may feel like the other stuff to them is a little woo-woo. It's like practice putting yourself in those situations where you have to try to see something from someone else's point of view.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Maria. Megan, any last moments on this topic?
No, I believe that there's so many pieces that intertwine across all of us that I'm excited to hear back from some of the listeners of what they were able to resonate with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if y'all are just joining us, I think that was a great transition, Megan. Thank you. We couldn't have planned it better. For if y'all just joining us either on live or replay, we are having the conversation on the topic of leading with emotional intelligence, elevating workplace culture and collaboration. And the first question we just finished discussing was, what are some practical ways leaders can strengthen their emotional intelligence and apply it to everyday interactions? So if you missed that, watch the beginning when you do the replay. Now we're going to move on to the second question, and that is, how does emotional intelligence directly influence collaboration and workplace culture, especially during times of stress or change? I'm going to say it one more time because sometimes we have auditory challenges and processing that I want people to be able to have time and space to read and hear. So, how does emotional intelligence directly influence collaboration and workplace culture, especially during times of stress or change? And what I want to just notate for people who are watching, I have currently a QR code to underneath my hand here that says connect with Megan. And when everyone was speaking, I had one for Maria, I had one for Jamie. So you can go to their LinkedIn, and but you can also, they should be tagged in this post on LinkedIn. But if you're watching on YouTube or Instagram, you can use this QR code to find them. So we're going to now start with Megan. Megan, come on in. Question number 2.
Yeah, when I thought about this question, what I really thought about is how stressful our current environment is right now, and how many changes are happening right now, and how many of the clients that we're working with specifically are navigating the polarizing climate that we're dealing with, and why emotional intelligence has become such an important topic that's more mainstreamed than in the past. It's always been an important topic, but it tended to be an important topic for people who knew it was important. And now it's becoming something that everyone is aware of. It's becoming more socialized, and it's becoming even more critical because of the high stress that we're under. Um, when I think about emotional intelligence, ultimately it shapes how we handle stress, how we resolve conflict, how we communicate expectations to ourselves, to our teams, to the general society, our communities that we work with. And the facts are that teams who lead with emotional intelligence, leaders who lead teams with emotional intelligence, have higher trust and psychological safety. And as Jamie shared earlier, psychological safety is critical for everyone to feel like they belong. And ultimately, everyone wants to be seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. And we don't leave leaders, or we don't leave teams or organizations because of the money, right? We leave leaders. We leave people who don't see us, who don't value us, who don't hear us, who don't welcome us. And when we can truly embrace emotional intelligence as a critical part of being human, and that's really the goal here, right? It's about humanizing conversations. And if we can bring emotional intelligence in as a human factor, then we will see exponential growth, both socially, academically, productivity, revenue. I see this in every client and every business that truly centers emotional intelligence as critical, and that becomes their alignment to values, alignment to mission, because it's about growing through it, not being perfect. We don't need to be fearless leaders. We need to be leaders who fear less, not fearless.
Beautiful. I love that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Because honestly, I think fear is actually an important component to our
Absolutely.
leadership, is being able to kind of know, oh, I'm not sure if I know how to do that. And then, oh, guess what? I have a community of people where I can get support. But if we don't feel, know, and understand ourselves through the development of our emotional intelligence, then we're going to be stuck in fear as
Yep.
opposed to being less fear. But fearless
Yeah.
is not, yes, I absolutely agree with you, Megan. Fearless
And
is
if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to move rooms.
right. Oh, yes.
Done. Yeah.
That's right. Stop being the smartest person in the room. Go to another
Mhm.
room. I
Yep.
love that. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to change the QR code. I'm going to tell everybody what I'm doing, and we're going to move to Jamie. Come on in, Jamie. I wish I
Oh,
could figure out
wow.
another way. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Megan, thank you so much for all of that. Wow. There were a lot of nuggets in there. One of the things that's coming to mind is that empathy isn't for the weak. I mean, that's really what comes up for me, is when we really get to show up. Um, I can't remember what was actually said around that, but why collaboration only happens, I think, when we're under stress. If we can't access that, I mean, that's why I go back and do the meditation and the mindfulness and the somatics and all that beforehand. That's my locker room. Now I bring it to the playing field, right? And so when I get to show up in empathy because I've been practicing on my own, and that's where I was like, it's been some of the hardest work that I've done, and some of the hardest work I do with other people is trying to find their own internal compass and their own sense of self, their own self-awareness, because we haven't been encouraged to do that for ourselves. And so again, I'm just coming back to, when we know our own strengths, when we know our areas of growth, we can be aware of others' strengths and have compassion for what other people may not have quite yet. And so without psychological safety and trust, we don't really get too far. And so we get this communication both ways when we have done our work. So under stress, and this is actually when, Maria, you mentioned stories, and stories are so important. Not only the reading we do, but the stories we tell. So again, when you in your non-stress time, when you actually have these moments to connect with each other as a team, as individuals, and you get to know who people are, then you can bring that into the rooms as well. So when you're under stress, you actually know who people are and what you can actually provide as empathy and compassion in those spaces with them. 20 years of Pixar has taught me that you actually don't get to create. You don't get very far with creativity and innovation without having that safety, um, yeah, and understanding of who people are.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you are. I feel like this is the staple that you're bringing in today, Jamie, is the psychological safety. And a lot of what we need in order to build more empathic, emotionally intelligent spaces is that, I often share group agreements with my clients. We're going to start with some group agreements so that, what is shared here stays here, and what is learned here can leave here with attribution, of course,
Mhm.
but really being able to support our leaders, our workplaces, our communities, to know that when they identify something, that there may be some uncomfortable emotions, but discomfort, and I would say, and discomfort is the pathway to growth. But if we shut people down every time there's this discomfort going on, like hand them a tissue or stop talking, well, we're not going to talk about that, then we never get there.
We
And
learn our best lessons in our hardships.
yeah,
In the long version of the Serenity Prayer is hardships as a pathway to peace. And through hardships, we find peace and we find connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. All right. Last but not least. All right. Come on in, Maria.
So many things. Yeah, I basically curated the business case for empathy and emotional intelligence in my first empathy book, The Empathy Edge. So I just want to encourage people that the data and the research is out there, that empathy and emotional intelligence boosts engagement, performance, innovation, employee retention, customer loyalty, customer revenue, customer satisfaction, like all the hard KPIs that organizations actually care about. When you create an empathetic culture and you reward and model and celebrate leaders who operate with empathy, so that you're not rewarding and modeling after the toxic rock stars, you catapult your organization to success. So with that said, there's also neuroscience behind this, and neuroscience behind everything that Megan and Jamie are talking about. When we are under stress or fear or anxiety, our human brains go into survival mode. Whether it's actually like we talk about the saber-toothed tiger or a really psychologically abusive boss who is not emotionally intelligent. When that happens, we cannot access our cognitive skills, our executive functions, the things that help our people and our organization dominate a market, come up with innovative ideas, come up with creative solutions, problem solve effectively. So neuroscience tells us that that environment that lacks emotional intelligence is actually forcing us to, if we want to be really cold about it, work with assets that are less than optimal capacity, right? And there's one study from Catalyst from a few years ago, Misha, you're probably familiar with it, where they interviewed people that self-selected, employees that self-selected between, I have an empathetic leader and I don't have an empathetic leader. And then they ask them the same questions. And one of the questions that always gets me is, I am able to be innovative at work. Over 60% of the people with an empathetic culture or emotionally intelligent leader said that they could be innovative at work. For those that didn't have an empathetic culture, only 13% of them said that they could be innovative at work. And I don't know any CFO who would be okay with an asset that only operated at 13% capacity on any given day, right? So we're talking about I love what Megan and Jamie have both said around, none of this is soft. This is all hard, bottom line impact to an organization, not to mention the moral or ethical, reason to be an empathetic and a kind and an emotionally intelligent human being. If you're a skeptic about it or think it doesn't have a place at work, you couldn't be more wrong. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. And it's interesting because most times a workplace where innovation, I think there are some disconnects, right? I don't think there are a lot of CFOs, leaders, owners who realize that innovation is actually what helps their organization succeed. And they want everybody to be uniform and this, and it's like they want it to be a certain way. And yet the more you tuck people into a box, you're closing the walls in on your own hopes and dreams.
Especially in times of change, which is what we're in right now. We're dealing with workplace culture shifts. We're dealing with AI. And there's studies that have just come out that show that if you have a culture based on trust and based on emotional intelligence, you are going to be more effective navigating change. Because I think, Misha, either it was you or Megan who made the point earlier about, or maybe it was Jamie, you were talking about the locker room versus being on the field, right? If you talk to any leader, whether it's in the military or a professional sports team, they will tell you that the contest, the crisis, the battle is only 2 to 4% of the time. Over 90% of the time is building the trust and the camaraderie and the psychological safety. So in the moment you need people to perform and adapt and change, they will, because they know you're asking for a reason. And so that's what we're laying the foundation for, is to deal with like the time we're in right now, which is so full of change and chaos.
Absolutely. And speaking of chaos, before I have you guys wrap up, I'm going to just remind everyone that has been watching my Lunch and Learns, the Resilient Joyful Leader will be back on November 24th. The topic is navigating toxic relationships at work. Yes, strategies for leaders with teams, and we're going to be strategies for leaders and teams. I'll have guests Rachel Needham, Michael Tennant, and Sam Gozo, some wonderful folks. But before we leave, those of us that are here today, I would love for you to just, and we are short on time, so we had a great conversation, absolutely beautiful. I would like you to say again your name, your company name, how people can reach you, and a golden nugget you got from someone else. So I'm going to name your company name, how people can reach you, and a golden nugget you got from somebody else. And I'm going to tell you what, you only have 15 seconds each. Yeah. So who hasn't gone first yet? I think, Jamie, I think we're back to you.
Okay, cool. I'll
Okay.
go fast. I'm Jamie Roderick. I am the founder of Jamie Roderick Coaching. You can find me here on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram at Coach Jamie. And my golden nugget is, you can also find me at jamieroderickcoaching.com. And my golden nugget is from Megan, actually, when she just said so simply, people just want to be seen, heard, welcomed, and valued.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that, Megan. It's funny because I was going to say, and I totally forgot, that my vision for my business is that I will help 1 million people feel empowered enough either to be or to offer feeling seen, heard, valued, and understood. So I love that you said that, Megan. Thank you, Jamie. All right, come on in, Megan.
All right. Megan Fucciarelli from Us Squared Consulting. And you can contact us through LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, either US2 Consulting or Megan Fucciarelli. Just depends on what kind of spin you'd like. More professional, Us Squared, more personal, Megan Fucciarelli. And my tidbit is from you, Jamie. And it's very simply put of empathy is not for the weak. I am really big into sound bites, in case you all haven't noticed. So I just like those quick things that help me think. And Jamie, empathy is not for the weak. I'm going to think of you every time I think about that statement now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My dad says getting old is not for the fragile or weary. Like, so empathy is.
But you become fragile and weary as you get older. How is that?
I know.
Talk about ironic, right?
Right, exactly. All right, Maria. Thank you, Megan. Maria.
Oh, hi. So my company's called Red Slice, but people can just go to theempathyedge.com and they can find my podcast there. And that's a page on my website. They can connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm Red Slice Maria. And my nugget is from Megan, because I'm also all about the sound bites. Megan, I loved when you said you can't heal what you don't reveal, or something to that effect. And I recently learned that concept has been with us all the way from Confucius, about being able to name something before you can deal with it. So, but I like things that rhyme better. So thank you.
Well, and I love that. And so what I'll do is I'll give to you, Maria, which I learned through my spiritual community, is you have to name it to tame it. Right? So there you go. All right, wonderful. Well, I am Misha Saffron, and again, my company is Center for Empathy and Emotional Intelligence, and I'm delighted to be the founder, creator, and moderator for this Joyful Resilient Leader Lunch and Learn every other week on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Please like, follow, subscribe, whatever, connect to the people that are on this platform, because we're all amazing humans that can help you and your organizations or your individuals seek better direction and success. And I look forward to connecting with everybody in 2 weeks. All right, we'll say goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.